My name is Liz Canning, and I'm the director of Motherload, which is a crowdsourced documentary that sort of uses the cargo bike to take you on a journey through the ups and downs of parenting in this sort of digital age of climate change. Cycling has always been a really big deal to me. I had a sort of troubled youth and was kind of obsessed with school and disconnected from my body. I was anorexic when I was a teenager. And when I moved out to California, something about the culture and then the nature, especially once I started riding my bicycle in Marin, in this nature that felt so much more wild to me and less domesticated than the East Coast nature, it made me feel whole. And so I rode my bike all the time, and it helped me so much with anxiety and depression. And then when I had kids, and I had twins, and I was really tired, and I really needed that feeling of being free and feeling powerful on my bike and being in nature. I had to carry two babies around, and it was hard. I did a Google search for how do you carry kids on bike, and I discovered this community all over the world, people interacting over their excitement about what's called a cargo bike, and which is a bike that's designed to carry passengers, cargo, anything, that sort of can replace a car. A cargo bike can. So we got a bike, and it changed my life, and it changed motherhood for me, and it made me very, very, very happy. And at that time, I had been cycling through ideas and just sort of rejecting them. And when I said to my husband, I think I might want to make a film. Well, we got an electric assist motor. Once we got an electric assist motor on the bike, I began to think, these bikes are not just for hardcore cyclists. Anybody could do this. This could be a big deal, and I wanted to tell that story. And my husband's the one that said, "That's a good idea. You have to stick with that." And he didn't know it was going to take so long, but that's what I did. So at the time, my kids were little, and I was still really exhausted all the time. And I thought, if I'm going to make a documentary about this, I want to try to channel all that excitement that I see online from parents, business owners, all kinds of people. Once they discover what this bike can do for their lives, they start, chatting and posting video, and there was a lot of activity online. And so I made a trailer that kind of announced this concept of a crowdsourced documentary, and I asked people to send me media that sort of captured their experience with a cargo bike. And it was amazing. It was amazing. People got together and had a cargo bike roll call party, and then they would hire a friend to shoot, and they would interview 10 people, and then they would go for a ride, and they would send me all the media. And so I was gathering media for years. The challenge was trying to create a narrative out of this, that could sustain an audience over 90 minutes, I was a short form editor. I didn't really have a lot of experience with that. And I zeroed in on the story of Extracycle and Ross Evans, which is a great story, and how he, as a college student in Nicaragua, went through a Bikes Not Bombs fellowship to try to design a bike that could help people out of poverty in Nicaragua. And I made that the narrative spine of my documentary and worked on it for a really long time. And then we had a feedback screening at KQED maybe 2 years ago, and everybody said, how you introduce the story with your personal story in the film, well, we want you to continue that. We want to hear your personal story here. We don't want to hear so much from white men about technology. Well, I think a little bit of the story I told before applies here, because I think I really discovered home in the nature, in the wildness of California. There's something about being on the top of Mount Tam and being in the redwoods, and especially when I go out with my dog on the trails in Fairfax, there's the smells and the temperatures and the microclimates and it's something about being out in the natural world that makes me feel comfortable in my own body, which is something that I did not for a very long time. I was really caught up in my head. I was very rejecting of my own body, which I think is more and more a strong push in our culture to just, do what's most convenient, even if it's isolating and you don't use your body, and we're just getting more and more disconnected, like more and more in our heads with the technology and stuff. And so that is what I think of when I think of home. I think of my connection to the land, actually. I want people to rethink, like, to try to remember what makes them feel good. Because I'm pretty sure that if you really look back, you think about the times when you were walking to school or riding to work or being connected to your community and your body and the natural world. I mean, we are hardwired, with our hunter-gatherer DNA that hasn't evolved, in millennia. We're hardwired to need those connections, to need those sensory ties to our world. And there's so much about our current culture that is about denying those ties, and the automobile being a huge thing there. So I think once you start to question, like, these things that I've been told are the best way for me to get around, or the best way for me to communicate with people, or the best way for me to, live the life, like have this high quality of life. When you start to question them, like in terms of how does your body feel when you're doing these things? And at the end of the day, when you come home, if you've been, bike commuted to and from work, you might have taken more time, you might be sweatier, you might have to wear slightly different clothes, but you're gonna feel better.